It was also a little dull. Who sucks? We hate him so much. Well, hello. Welcome back to my channel. Joshana here to talk about some friggin' books. I think this is the same as the last recent wrap-up I did where I have 6 total to talk about, 3 of which are DNFs, and 3 of which are ones that I completed. And these are all from the beginning part of August, well, up until now. I guess all of August probably, because today's the 29th, and I do not think I'm going to finish one of the books I'm reading. Well, I could finish by Saturday, which is the 31st. So maybe I'll have one more, but at any rate, this is most of August. I probably would have had a little bit more for August, except for the fact that I went to Michigan for a week, visiting my family with my boyfriend. And like, I read on the plane, but I didn't read pretty much the entire time I was there. But anyway, let's just get into it. The first one I'm talking about is actually one of the DNFs, and it was a book that I own that I'm going to be unhauling now, and that is A Snake Falls to Earth by Darcy Little Badger. This is the same author who wrote Elotsoe, and there's actually I don't know if it's a sequel or like a prequel coming out for Elotsoe this year, I'm pretty sure. And I am interested in that because I did really, really like Elotsoe. And this one, I wasn't like hating it or anything. I got 39% into it, and I thought it was well written. It very much has like folk tale vibes to it. There is a whole element of it that is like a folk tale kind of interwoven into the story. And there was nothing bothering me. I wasn't annoyed with anything. This isn't a DNF where I'm like, ugh, I'm at my limit. It was just one that it was taking me a while to get through it. And it was around like the 30-ish% mark that I realized I'm not really getting engaged with this story, and it's not even that I was bored. I don't know what it was. I just wasn't getting gripped by the story. And I gave it a little bit longer, but I think it might have just been a little bit too folktale-esque for me. I think the part where, like, the interwoven, like, the different chapters where we were, like, hearing, like, a folktale story or whatever from a different character's perspective just wasn't exactly working for me. So, yeah, I just decided to DNF. And I'm gonna unhaul it, and hopefully someone else will be able to enjoy it and really, really love it. Because again, nothing wrong with it whatsoever. Just wasn't the story for me, you know? The next one is from the Mages of the Wheel series by J.D. Evans, Wind and Wildfire. This is the prelude, a prequel to the Mages of the Wheel series. I had not read this one yet. So I did a reread of Rain and Ruin, and I wanted to finally get to this one before I continued on with the rest of my reread of the series. This one is following Naime's parents. Naime is the main female character from the first book. She is the Sultana, the princess, who is trying to, you know, politic and run this country and do what she believes is best for the people and for their country. And this story, we hear about this kind of little love triangle here. We hear a little bit about it in Rain and Ruin especially, but also in the other books in the series. It's just mentioned here and there because it's Naime's 2 parents, and the other guy that was involved who was interested in her mother is the Grand Vizier, who sucks. We hate him so much. And in the main series, he is just always trying to screw over Naime. And even though he remained friends with the Sultan, he just always kind of like held on to that grudge. And so this is the story of how that grudge came to be, basically, and how her parents fell in love and got together. And I did enjoy this. The chemistry, I mean, J.D. Evans, I think, cannot miss with writing just such believable, authentic feeling chemistry between characters, friends as well as love interests. And I really, really enjoyed the chemistry here. I did feel like the pacing, it was a little bit slow in the beginning, I guess. Just kind of took a while to like really get going for me. Since it's not part of the main series, this is like, you know, a generation before, I'm not as invested in the plot of it all, and I kind of know where it's going with the plot of it all, obviously. But I did enjoy seeing how their relationship came to be and how Kadir developed this grudge and why he had this grudge, and he can kick fucking rocks. This character is just like such an asshat, incel ass, just motherfucker, dick, just piece of shit. He's just a piece of shit. I hate him. I hate him so much. I already hated him from the main series, and I really hate him now after reading this. Like, oh my God, just the worst kind of man. Ugh, just so entitled to the love and affection of women that he likes just because he's nice, or he thinks he's nice. He's not even nice. He's a fucking jerk. Anyway, I just hate him. Ugh. I did get emotional towards the end like a fucking loser in the epilogue. Because, like, we know that this is Naime's parents. Like, that's not, like, a spoiler or anything. It's a prequel. And towards the end, the epilogue is them, like, introducing Naime, their daughter, to the court and everything. And the final line of the book, oh my God, where is it? Hold on. Final line of the book. Her parents are Omar and Dile, I'm not sure how that would be pronounced, but as Omar lowered Naime back to Dile's arms and her little face brightened with a smile, Dile forgot her worry for a moment, wondering in delight just exactly what kind of woman her daughter would be. And I was like, she's gonna be great, don't worry. I ended up giving it 3.5. I think, just like I said, the element of I know what's gonna happen, like romances, you know they're gonna get together, but like I really know they're gonna get together, and I know the plot and everything, and like this plot, I mean, it's connected to the main series, obviously. Things that happen here affect things later on in Naime's time, but at the same time, like, not really. It's not a big, integral, necessary thing to read if you're just reading the larger series, so I think that kind of took away from it. And then, like I said, the pacing kind of stuff. Next was yet another DNF, and my friends, I'm so sorry, Elle and Roger and Ingrid, my booktube besties, just some of my besties in general, they all picked up The Spell Shop by Sarah Beth Durst, and they were like, oh my God. I think Elle read it first, and so then Roger and Ingrid read it right around the same time. I don't know if anyone buddy read it. I don't think so. And I was like, oh, I'll read it as soon as I get it from the library. It's taking forever. But then it like came in suddenly, so I picked it up, and I stopped at 24%. The writing was occasionally amusing and fun, and I like Sarah Beth Durst. I've only read The Queens of Renthia, but like I fucking loved it, and I like the writing style and everything. So it was occasionally amusing and fun, like, you know, prose and whatever and dialogue. But then, oh my God, this one I just felt like there was so much, it felt like info dumping about the menial tasks and chores that the main character is doing. In this one, we start off right at the beginning with our main character, who I can't remember her name right now. Give me 1 second. Kiela? Yeah, Kiela is like a librarian at this like kind of like Library of Alexandria type of library, it feels like, and there's magic in this world, and all the like spell books are kept very guarded and locked down in this library only for like, I think, royalty or nobility to access. And there's a revolution that happens, and we start the book with Kiela, and her little friend who's a plant, a talking plant, a sentient plant named Kaz, and they are escaping the library as it's like on fire, and they take a bunch of books, and technically it's like stealing, and it's quite the crime. And they go back to her home island where she was born and raised, and her family's cottage is still there, but it's like run down and whatnot. So they're like getting the cottage back up and running. And there was way too many scenes for me personally of them like dusting things and sweeping and getting the water, the well running again, and cleaning the dishes and wiping everything off, and, you know, shaking out all the blankets and washing the blankets and finding a tub behind the door where we can wash things and ourselves, and there's a bucket over here, and oh, there's a few little knickknacks in this cupboard where we can use for this and that. And it was just too much for me. It was just, I don't know, following her around while she dusts and cleans and cleans up the cottage and just does chores was not like a fun, cozy time for me. And I also, I felt like the character read a little bit, I don't know if this is like on purpose or if this is a thing, whatever, but She felt maybe like neurodivergent coded at the very least. I didn't read far enough. Maybe later on it is like a conversation that happens. But she definitely felt like neurodiverse, coded, maybe autistic coded, something. Very, very antisocial, okay? And that's fine. It's not like relatable personally for me, but I don't need things to be relatable personally. I think I was getting annoyed though with how much we were like focusing on it and like kept mentioning it and kept mentioning it again, mentioning it again. Like how she doesn't want to talk to anybody. She doesn't talk to anybody. She doesn't want to talk to anybody. And like, I don't want to go talk to anyone. Do I have to go talk to people? I'm going to run away because I don't want to talk to anybody. Just like over and over and over and over again, where for me, it was reading like, I understand. I don't need you to keep reminding me. Like it's established and now it doesn't need to be like a constant thing. But I'm sure for a lot of people who are like maybe that antisocial and maybe just antisocial in general, shy, introverted, or neurodivergent and also that like shy and introverted, maybe that is like your experience where you're just constantly thinking about that. But like I said, to me it didn't necessarily read like, oh, we're trying to show her real experience. It was reading to me like the author trying to like, do you see? Do you see? And I'm like, yeah, I see. I do. But it was mostly, that was like a small little element. It was mostly just that I was kind of bored. I was bored. And I just was like, I mean, it's kind of cute and shit. And I'm sure things are going to pick up at some point. But like, I'm just not that into it. So I gave up. So sorry to everyone who loves this one. I definitely can see why it is getting so much hype and recognition. And I think it's well-deserved, I'm sure. I'm not like, there are cozy fantasies that I have read that I have liked, but generally, I just think it's not something I'm like gravitating toward, you know? Then I read Daughter of No Worlds by Carissa Broadbent. And this is, the little blurb, a former slave fighting for justice, a reclusive warrior who no longer believes justice exists, and a dark magic that will entangle their fates. So yeah, our main character that we're following, I don't remember her name, Tisana, kind of rhymes with my name. But yeah, she was, as a child, stolen away and, taken into slavery, sold off to a guy who had her for years and years and years. And she wasn't like a prostitute, because there was like one time where she did something physical and got extra money and her master was like all pissed about it. But she was forced to sleep with him for sure. And R-worded by him and beaten by him and everything and kept in captivity, like she was a slave. And she had to dance for money and goes to buy back her freedom, and things ensue and she ends up across the sea in this other kingdom, and there's magic in this world, and she wants to get trained by this very renowned magical order, so that she can go and like free all the slaves in her country, essentially. And yeah, the expert that she gets saddled to is this guy. What's his name? Oh, Max. Maxentarius. Max. And he's like, I don't want to be anyone's mentor. And they're basically like, you got to do it, bro. Bye. And things ensue from there. This one, fantasy, romance, whatever. The TLDR is I didn't have a bad time with this at all. At moments, I even was quite enjoying it, the chemistry between them. I really liked Tisana as a character. She just felt like different to me, I guess. I don't know, I enjoyed her. But there's another character who gets introduced, another element to the story also that gets introduced. And once that was all introduced, I kind of started to lose interest at that point. I don't think I will continue with the series. It was an enjoyable enough romance and enjoyable enough characters, but they weren't like so enjoyable. I wasn't so like, oh my God, I love them, that the plot elements like are overshadowed. So because I just didn't love the plot all that much, I was kind of like, okay. That's a thing I read and it's fine. Just not rereadable for me. The writing was cool. The writing was fine. There was a few times where there was like a quite nicely written line where I highlighted it. But then there was also a few times where I highlighted things that were like really corny and silly. Where I was like, okay. So it was a mixed bag for me in the writing department. And yeah, again, the characters, I mostly liked Tisana, but then once this other element got introduced, I started losing interest in her internal struggles. It just started to feel tedious. And also, I always roll my eyes a little bit when we have books. I've talked about this before. When we have books and we have characters who agonize over killing blatantly, upfront, no questions asked, horribly evil people. Like when a character who's like our beloved character that we're supposed to be rooting for, and they either on purpose or on accident, especially if it's on accident, where I'm like, Jesus Christ, like shut up. But even if it's intentional and they like kill someone who is this evil, evil fucking monster, right? Someone who owns slaves and sexually assaults people in general and beats other humans who he owns and shit like this. Like those types of characters and other like slave drivers and like people who are capturing people to put them into slavery, or, you know, pedophiles, shit like this. And then we have our main character being like, oh, but I took a life. I'm just so distraught, and I'm gonna think about this and talk about it and agonize over it for days or weeks or months or years, and I'll just never be able to like really just accept that this is a thing I did. I'm like, okay. Because it feels like an author being like, see, look, they're morally superior. They're a good person. Like, and because I feel like it's like, you know, taking life is always this big deal and huge internal struggle, even if you're killing literal child rapists or Nazis. And I just don't agree with this like thought process and sentiment. And I don't think that it makes a main character like, oh, look, they're a good person because they can't get over it. I don't know. It annoys me. Like, to a point, it's like, okay, I've never fucking killed someone, even if it was an evil, evil person. I'm sure it would be like a thing I would have to like, whoa, process that for a minute if I did that, right? But I don't mind someone like taking a hot second to like process, like, and like even just like seeing dead bodies. If you've never seen a dead body before, and then you see a dead body that you just like took the life out of them and you watch the life leave their eyes, like, yeah, that might be like, oh, wow, that was intense. But I don't know if it's like this horrible evil monster. I'm not gonna fucking like marinate on this very long. And it just doesn't make me think like, oh, they are such a good person. I don't know. It doesn't make me think they're a bad person, but it just annoys me. I'm just like, okay, Jesus Christ, can we get over it though? Like, it just doesn't feel logical, I guess, you know? It feels so illogical. And like I said, it just tends to feel like the author being like, look at what a good person they are, everyone. And I'm like, okay, that doesn't make someone a good person to me, I guess. Other things could. I might think they are a good person, but like, not because of that. I just don't like seeing characters like constantly beating themselves up over shit like that. And Tisana started kind of doing that, where I was just like, all right, okay, I'm kind of over it. So this one I gave 3.25 stars. Towards the beginning, it was feeling like probably like a 3.75, I would say. Like a pretty dang good time. Like I was enjoying it, the world was cool, but yeah, it just started to wane over time, and then some like corny stuff happened and some unbelievable stuff, so 3.25. Still like solid. Not mad that I read it. Next was another DNF, and this was one, I have a video that I recently posted that if I remember to do it, I'll put the card up here. It's probably, I think, my last video, depending on when this video goes up, but seeing how long I could go before DNFing. So this book I knew going in, like, I'm not gonna read this book. So it was kind of like a hate read. Like, it was just like a little project, a little for funsies thing I was doing. How to Become the Dark Lord and Die Trying by Django Wexler. And I didn't feel too bad about doing it because, I don't know, I don't feel that terrible posting ranty shit about books that have a decent audience or authors that have a decent audience, you know what I mean? And my channel's pretty small. I know an influencer, and some people are influenced by my opinion, but like in the grand scheme of things, I'm not affecting any authors' sales all that much. Authors with like an established career, I'm talking, because I wouldn't do this if it was some like kind of new up and coming debut indie author, unless it was like offensive shit, then I probably would. But just something that I just was like, oh, that's kind of bad, I wouldn't do that. But this I didn't feel terrible about, and like I said, I knew I was gonna DNF going into it, so I'm not gonna talk too much about it. I will You can go watch my thoughts there if you want. I stopped at 10%. That's how far I made it. But I was exhausted beyond fucking belief with this main character. The blurb says this is the Groundhog Day meets Deadpool. Like, those are the comp, like, pieces of media, titles, whatever. And so it has this very, like, irreverent, Deadpool-esque tone to it. And I just felt like it did not work at all. It was so insufferably annoying and repetitive and just annoying, exhausting. I was just like, shut up. And footnotes constantly, immature, like it felt very juvenile. The main character felt very juvenile. The tone of the book in general felt very juvenile. I just was like, okay, so yeah, not a fun time, but it was kind of funny doing the like little video, whatever. And then the next one that I did actually finish, I got it from the library, and that is Funny Story by Emily Henry. So this is adult contemporary romance, as you can probably tell from the title and the author, if you are familiar at all with popular contemporary romance. This is the first Emily Henry that I have read, and this one is set in Michigan, in northern Michigan, in the Traverse City area, which I'm familiar with. My brother lives there right now, actually, and I was there when I was in Michigan. And in this one, we start in the very beginning. This breakup has already happened. Our main character, Daphne, was with this guy, Peter. They were engaged, they were getting married, and then there's a guy, Miles, who was dating Peter's best female friend, Petra. So Peter and Petra, which is really whatever, their names. They were best friends, and so Daphne, the whole time she was with Peter, like, he always was like, no, Petra's just my childhood best friend. She's like a sister to me. And then on his bachelor party night, he sleeps with Petra and ends up breaking up with Daphne and leaving her and kicking her out of the house that he technically bought, that she was living in. And she had moved to Michigan for him, like from, I think they were in Virginia or somewhere, like across state lines for this dude. And yeah, he called off the wedding and was like, figure it out, see you in a few, or get out within the next few days. So she ends up staying with Miles, Petra's boyfriend, because Petra leaves her boyfriend too. So the two of them are in this apartment and they're just like commiserating, you know, they hardly know each other. And she's a librarian, and then they randomly decide, they get an invitation to Petra and Peter's wedding, and they're like, fuck it, let's go together and like say we're together. And then they start doing this like fake dating thing, like putting on social media and shit that they're dating, telling people that they're dating, so that it can get back to Peter and Petra and whatever. And things go from there. The TLDR with this one is I liked it, but I didn't love it. The chemistry was nice between the two main characters, but as an individual, like as characters, they felt kind of immature for people who were supposed to be like 35. They acted and they just felt more like mid-20s age range to me. Just with their like emotional intelligence, their emotional maturity, they just felt pretty young. I don't see myself rereading this ever. Like I said, it was fun, it was an enjoyable enough time, but not that enjoyable. The writing was perfectly fine, even pretty dang good in places. There were some lines where I was like, oh, that's nice. I did love the chemistry between the two main characters, like I said, and even like the friendships that we saw and that we saw developing. Like, I liked that chemistry too. It was well written. There was some lack of communication though that just grated on my nerves so much. Again, they're like 35. Just, I don't know, some of the shit that they like, oh, I can't possibly say that. I was just like, okay, I don't know, shut up. It just annoyed me a little bit. And then again, like lack of communication. There's a thing that happens towards the end where a text could have been sent. That's all I'll say. A simple text could have been sent. And the situation still would have, like, one of our characters was affected by something negatively, right? And a text could have been sent and it still would have affected the other character negatively. Like, so the plot point still was there. Like, it wouldn't really change the plot point all that much, but it would change how, like, this character comes across, the one that didn't send a text. Because it's just like, you're that, like, again, childish wildly immature and just kind of dumb too. Like, you're 35 years old and you didn't think a simple, vague text even would be like required in this situation? Like, what kind of a person are you? So I didn't love that either. My biggest thing here with, like, it was fine and I was like, oh, okay, we're trucking along, they're having cutesy little times. Like, it was like simultaneously kind of enjoyable watching them like get to know each other and like learn more about each other and have all these memories, and like watching Daphne kind of like expand her life a little bit more after this breakup. But it was also a little dull. The plot got kind of just dull for me, where I was like, is something gonna happen? Like, it's kind of cute, but it's just over and over again them like doing cute shit together and like hanging out and like getting to know each other more and like, ooh, being flirty and like touching hands and like whatever, over and over and over again. So that was my biggest like qualm with it, really, was just that I felt like it was a little boring, honestly. Not that I wanted like big crazy drama necessarily. I don't know, there's a way of doing this type of thing without it being like, it kind of dragged, I guess, I felt a little bit. I think I would have enjoyed it more if we had started the story, like we got the backstory of like pre-breakup from like them telling us like, oh, this is what happened. I wish we had seen all of that happen. Like, I kind of wish I think it would have been better for me personally if we had started the story like right before Peter's bachelor party and like Ben and Daphne's point of, and like watched that fallout happen. I don't know, for me personally, that just would have been more interesting, I suppose. I don't know. So I ended up giving this one 3.5 stars. Pretty dang solid, but just not something that I'm like, oh my God, so amazing. I see why a lot of people like it, though. If you're a contemporary romance reader, you know, I'm not necessarily. I do read it here and there, but it's not something that I like really love. I do often find that it's just kind of boring. I'd rather watch a rom-com like movie than read an entire book. But yeah, that's it. That is the ones for August. Like I said, there's one that I'm reading right now that I might finish here in the next couple days, but probably not. So that's probably going to be it for all of August for me. If you've read any of these, let me know. If you also enjoyed them or also didn't enjoy them, whichever one it is. And of course, you can just leave an emoji if you'd like to say hello and make your presence known. As always, thank you so much for your time. Hope you all have a wonderful day, and I will talk to you later. Bye-bye.